When comparing Super Saiyan 2 Gohan during the Cell Games to Majin Vegeta during the Buu Saga, the matchup is more complicated than it might initially seem. Both are Super Saiyan 2s, both have their emotional breaking points, and both are at peak versions of their respective characters at that time. But who actually comes up on top? If you enjoy conversations like this and want to take deeper part in discussions such as this nature, I highly encourage you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server, link below in the description. We'll be diving into this topic more over there. Now, without further delay, let's begin. Let's start with Gohan during the Cell Games. This is the first time we see a Super Saiyan 2 transformation in the series, and it's not subtle. His power skyrockets to the point where even Perfect Cell, someone who was casually handling Super Saiyans moments earlier, is completely overwhelmed. Gohan shatters the Cell Juniors with a single blow, each characters who were giving trouble to the likes of Vegeta, Trunks, and even Goku. And once he gets serious, Cell himself is manhandled. Gohan even tanks a point-blank Kamehameha with one arm and still wins the beam struggle after being injured, further showing just how dominant he was. However, there's a catch. Gohan's downfall was his own overconfidence. After transforming, he becomes passive and cocky, allowing Cell to self-destruct and nearly cost everyone their lives. He only gets serious again after Goku's death, and even then, his injuries and emotional state weaken him. Still, even at a fraction of his strength, he manages to defeat Cell, who had powered up even further after regenerating. Now, let's move on to Majin Vegeta. At this point in the story, Vegeta has accepted Babidi's magic for the sole purpose of surpassing Goku. It grants him a boost in power, but more importantly, it removes the mental blocks that held him back. The Majin boost is hard to quantify precisely, but it clearly puts Vegeta on par with Super Saiyan 2 Goku, who himself trained for 7 years after the Cell Games, and Goku even says during their fight that neither of them is holding back. So if Majin Vegeta is relative to Super Saiyan 2 Goku, and Goku is considerably stronger than he was during the Cell Games, then logically Majin Vegeta should be more powerful than Gohan was back then, right? Well, it's not that straightforward. One of the first things we need to establish when discussing this fight is the significant power discrepancy often associated with Gohan and versus debates. For this comparison, we're focusing solely on Gohan during the Cell Games right when he first achieved Super Saiyan 2, and that includes the rage-boosted version of Gohan. Now, it's important to clarify that there is a distinction between Gohan's regular Super Saiyan 2 form and the version powered up by emotional outbursts. This isn't a fan theory or speculative headcanon. In both the original manga and the Daizenshuu guidebooks, Gohan's rage power is referenced as something independent of his normal battle strength. This means the amplified energy he displayed during the transformation was an additional surge, not part of his base Super Saiyan 2 level. To really grasp just how powerful this rage-boosted version of Gohan was, we can look ahead 7 years into the Buu Saga. During this arc, Dabura is introduced and described by Goku as being much stronger than Cell. And this isn't just any version of Cell Goku is referring to, it's Super Perfect Cell, the one Gohan defeated at the climax of the Cell Games. The reason we can be confident about this is because Goku witnessed and sent Super Perfect Cell firsthand, so there's no ambiguity about who he's referencing. The surrounding dialogue makes it clear that if Gohan still possessed the same level of power during that moment, when defeating Dabura wouldn't be a problem. However, since he hadn't maintained his training over those 7 years, his strength had diminished in that regard. Some argue that Goku might be referring to the Perfect Cell, the one before the Zenkai revival, but that interpretation doesn't quite hold up unless you're arguing Cell could beat Dabura, and that's a completely different video for a completely different debate. Moreover, Dabura is shown to have a fairly even fight with Buu Saga Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, which tells us something important. Even without his full potential, Gohan in Super Saiyan 2 is still significantly stronger than Cell. But at the same time, he falls short of the peak he reached during the Cell Games due to one key difference: his rage. Both Goku and Vegeta in the official guide notes that Gohan lost his intensity emotional burst, meaning that Buu-era Gohan is operating without the same firepower that he once had. All of this gives us a clear picture of just how formidable Gohan was during the Cell Games. His power left such a lasting impression that he's still brought up by the main cast years later. In fact, when Majin Buu was first revived, Gohan remarks that if he still had the strength he once did, he likely could have been able to stop Buu on the spot. Goku seemingly echoes this sentiment by stating that when Gohan fights while truly enraged, there's virtually no one that can stand against him. It's also heavily implied that Vegeta, even after training intensely for 7 years, wasn't able to close the gap between him and Gohan, even after getting Super Saiyan 2, at least before the Majin era. When evaluating Majin Vegeta, one of the first things to address is how much stronger he became compared to his standard Super Saiyan 2 form prior to receiving the Majin boost. A good point of reference comes from the anime filler, where Goku, even in his base form, is shown pushing back a weighted Pikkon, something even Super Perfect Cell couldn't do, since he was swiftly taken out by Pikkon. This highlights the kind of strength characters like Goku were achieving post-Cell Games. Now, why this matters is because Majin Vegeta is being portrayed as on par with Super Saiyan 2 Goku during their fight. In fact, many fans argue that Majin Vegeta may have even had the upper hand. The Majin enhancement, as seen with characters like Spopovich and Yamu, is no small boost. It dramatically amplifies physical strength, durability, and flexibility. This enhancement allowed Vegeta to close the gap between himself and Goku, who had the advantage of training relentlessly for 7 years in Otherworld, without the limitations of a mortal body, and had the opportunity to spar against some of the most powerful warriors in existence. Vegeta's boost was so impressive that it led to the direct comparison between him and Gohan, sparking the ongoing debate about who was stronger at the time. There are two specific moments where Gohan's strength is brought up relative to Majin Vegeta. The first is when Goku transforms into Super Saiyan 2 and Vegeta acknowledges that Goku had finally surpassed Gohan at his peak, a clear sign of just how strong Gohan once was. This also implies that prior to that moment, Vegeta didn't consider himself, or possibly even Goku, stronger than Gohan during the Cell Games, even after Goku unleashed Super Saiyan 2 when fighting Yakon. Another instance occurs earlier when Vegeta is still on board Babidi's ship. At that point, before gauging Goku's full power, he remarks that Gohan has grown soft due to peace and likely hasn't kept up with his training, leading Vegeta to believe that he himself may now be stronger. This comparison, of course, doesn't take into account Gohan's former rage-boosted strength, which he has no longer possessed by the time of the Buu Saga. Vegeta is instead comparing Gohan's current Super Saiyan 2 form in the Buu Saga, demonstrated in the tournament, to his own. If you guys want to see Gohan versus Vegeta before he becomes Majin, let me know in the comment section down below. I think it actually would be a better fight. A pivotal moment in this debate comes during Majin Vegeta's battle with Buu, where Piccolo, observing the fight, remarks that Vegeta appears to be just as strong as Gohan was during the Cell Games, possibly even stronger. This statement helped spark the long-standing debate about who would come up on top, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from the Cell Games or Majin Vegeta. As the title implies, this is a close matchup, and no matter which side you lean towards, there's a valid argument to be made. However, based on the information we have, it seems Majin Vegeta edges out in this matchup, and there are several reasons for that. To start, Vegeta himself acknowledges that Goku had surpassed the power Gohan displayed against Cell, and Goku in turn confirms that Vegeta is equal to him in strength. Supporting this further, Trunks comments that when Goku fights Buu as a Super Saiyan 2, his power feels on par with Vegeta's. All these statements create a consistent narrative where Goku and Vegeta in the Buu Saga are at least on the same level, or stronger than Gohan was during his peak in the Cell Games. Piccolo's observation can be interpreted in two ways: either Vegeta is on par with Gohan's strength or he surpassed it. Regardless of which interpretation you lean towards, both align with the previous mentioned character statements. While Goku does tell Gohan that if he gets angry no one can beat him, this seems more like motivational encouragement rather than an objective power assessment. After all, Goku has seen firsthand how Gohan's power surges when enraged, as it was the key to defeating Cell. However, it's important to note that at the time, Gohan's opponent wasn't Buu, but Dabura, and even Gohan himself, someone who understands his limits better than anyone, didn't believe he could defeat Buu, even if he tapped into his rage again. This is telling, especially considering this is the same Majin Buu that Majin Vegeta was holding his own against before Buu powered up further. Also, if we were to be generous to Gohan and brought them at the same strength, Gohan is only that strong because of his rage boost. Over time, as Gohan becomes more docile and not so enraged, his power would diminish, whereas Majin Vegeta's would remain that same strength all throughout. Not to mention that Vegeta's body is also much more durable. Majin Vegeta vs. Broly has been a highly requested video in the comment section of nearly all of my videos, so we'll be discussing that in this video. If you enjoy topics like this and want to take part in deeper Dragon Ball discussions, I highly encourage you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server, link below in the description. We'll be diving into this topic and more over there. Now, without further delay, let's begin. When discussing Majin Vegeta's power, one of the first big questions that comes up is just how much of a leap he made from his standard Super Saiyan 2 self before receiving Babidi's magic. A useful, albeit overlooked comparison comes from a filler moment in the anime, where Goku in his base form is shown physically matching a weighted Pikkon. This is significant because Pikkon easily stopped Super Perfect Cell in the Otherworld tournament, suggesting that post-Cell Games characters like Goku had been steadily scaling into new tiers of strength. This is important context when evaluating the Majin transformation. During his clash with Goku, Majin Vegeta was clearly portrayed as rivaling Super Saiyan 2 Goku, and some even argue he may have edged out an advantage. The Majin power-up, based on what we've seen with characters like Yamu and Spopovich, is just more than a small buff. It greatly enhances a fighter's stamina, durability, and power output, enough to potentially bridge the gap between a mortal who trained under gravity and pressure and a warrior like Goku who'd been honing his skills for 7 years in the afterlife, unbound by physical limitations and surrounded by powerful sparring partners. What's interesting is how this boost suddenly places Vegeta into conversations he wasn't in before, like the long-running debate over whether he or Gohan was stronger during the Buu Saga. The argument has roots in two specific references. First, when Goku unveils his Super Saiyan 2 transformation and Vegeta is stunned and admits Goku finally exceeded Gohan's best, referring back to Gohan's peak during the Cell Games. That admission strongly suggests that prior to this revelation, neither he or Goku believed themselves superior to Teen Gohan that once obliterated Cell. The second clue comes from earlier in the arc while Vegeta is still on board Babidi's ship. Before Goku unleashes any serious power, Vegeta speculates that Gohan has lost his edge, having grown too complacent in peace. He suggests that Gohan's current strength is no longer what it used to be and implies he might now be able to outmatch him. It's key to note that Vegeta isn't comparing himself to the rage-fueled one-armed Gohan who defeated Cell. He's comparing himself to the weaker Super Saiyan 2 version Gohan displayed at the World's Martial Arts Tournament. Now, if any of you are interested in a deeper breakdown of how Vegeta stacks up against Gohan before the Majin transformation, let me know in the comments below. There's a lot to unpack there. A major shift in perception occurred during the battle with Fat Buu, however. While observing Vegeta's fight, Piccolo remarks that Vegeta seemed just as powerful as Gohan, or possibly even stronger. At the same time, Goku himself confirms that Vegeta is equal to his own Super Saiyan 2 power, and even Trunks points out that Goku's energy during his fight with Buu feels identical to Vegeta's. So there's pretty clear scaling here. Majin Vegeta is equal to Super Saiyan 2 Goku, who is above Cell Games Gohan, at least in terms of raw power. Now, despite this parity, Vegeta still fails to defeat Buu, but it's worth noting that for a good chunk of the fight, he holds his own. He's able to keep up, dodge, land blows, and react to Buu's strange fighting style. His ultimate downfall seems less about lacking power and more about Buu's bizarre physiology and ability to shrug off damage. Even with well-placed attacks, Buu's body seems to absorb this punishment without meaningful consequence, which frustrates and eventually overwhelms Vegeta. In terms of power scaling, this places Majin Vegeta somewhere between multi-solar system and low galactic tier, depending on how much you give credit to his performance and Buu's durability. There's an old line from the Orange Bricks that claims Buu doesn't meet the mark of a galaxy buster, but that changes quickly when he launches Dabura across the horizon with a single strike, suggesting he's already at a galactic scale, and that's before he's even fully powered up or fought someone serious. So where does that leave Majin Vegeta? While he's clearly not as strong as Buu in a direct matchup, it's logical to place him above the initial Fat Buu that effortlessly took out Dabura, since he needed to put up more of a fight against Vegeta, which lands him somewhere above multi-solar system, probably at a galaxy busting tier, which is an insane leap from where he was just episodes before. Now, when speaking about Broly, his destructive capabilities stand out as fundamentally different compared to most high-tier threats in Dragon Ball Z. Even when severely restricted and wearing a control device to suppress his power, he showcases devastation on a truly alarming scale. While still in what can only be called a heavily weakened Super Saiyan state, he's shown annihilating large portions of the Southern Galaxy. This is often misinterpreted as a single galaxy, but in Dragon Ball's cosmology, each of the four quadrants, north, east, south, and west, encompass countless galaxies. Official guides such as Daizenshu 4 and Chozenshu 4 reinforce this by stating that Dragon Ball universe is an infinite number of galaxies and solar systems. So when Broly wipes out a noticeable chunk, visually estimated to be around a quarter of the south quadrant while being mentally unstable, chained, and suppressed, that already places him far above characters operating at a mere solar system level of destruction. At the very least, Broly's raw destructive output qualifies him as a multi-galaxy threat, and that's just scratching the surface. There's a reoccurring message across the different pieces of Dragon Ball media. If Broly is left to his own devices, his rampage will result in total cosmic devastation. Whether that destruction unfolds in an instant or builds gradually over time isn't always specified, but what is consistent is the end result, which is universal annihilation. This looming sense of universal scale danger has been echoed by various characters and material throughout the franchise. Even if the timeline for that destruction isn't set in stone, the narrative intent is crystal clear. Broly is not just a galactic menace, but a potential threat to the entire universe. Throughout the debut film, multiple characters repeatedly express sheer panic at Broly's presence, directly labeling him as a ticking time bomb for the entire universe. What makes these warnings even more significant is not just the scale of the destruction, but how quickly the destruction is expected to happen. See, unlike immortal beings like Majin Buu or Cell, who have infinite time on their side to gradually bring the universe to ruin, Broly is still immortal. He's a Saiyan, meaning his fighting potential peaks and eventually fades. His body, as powerful as it is, isn't immune to aging. If we were generous, we might have 4 or 5 decades of prime fighting years left. So when characters say the universe is in danger because of Broly, we're talking about a speed-based threat, not a slow burn. That's where the scale becomes impressive. Broly's rampage wasn't a threat that would unfold over a millennia like with Buu floating around destroying planets out of boredom. This was someone capable of systematically tearing apart reality on a clock. He was doing more damage in less time with a biological limit, and yet still warranted universal alarm. So the idea that calling someone universe level is a blanket statement given to all villains doesn't really hold weight there. With Broly, the timeline is what makes him terrifying. Another misunderstanding comes from people pointing to Broly's loss to Goku as a sign that he wasn't all that strong. The argument usually goes something like this. Well, Broly lost to a basic Super Saiyan with a friendship boost, so he must be below Super Saiyan 2 level. But this doesn't hold up under closer examination. For one, the pamphlet for Movie 8, an official Toei release, outright states that Goku's final blow against Broly was delivered after receiving a 1,000 times power increase. That number even dwarfs what people people consider the multiplier for Super Saiyan 3. It's not some minor amp, this was an absurd spike in power far beyond anything Goku had shown before in the movies or during the Cell game. So no, that wasn't just Goku getting a few donations from the squad and managing a lucky win. It was a unique, unprecedented boost that pushed him into a completely different tier, enough to briefly overpower Broly's overwhelming might. The idea that Goku beat Broly as just a Cell Saga level Super Saiyan with teamwork is a complete misread of the context and ignores hard numbers from Toei material. The bottom line is that Broly was annihilating galaxies in his sleep. He was seen as an imminent cosmic threat within a single timeline, and was only brought down by one-time astronomically amped Goku. Trying to downplay that by lumping him in with other villains just doesn't match the evidence. So to conclude, Broly scales dramatically above Majin Vegeta and would annihilate him as a result, making this matchup not even close. For everyone who had made it to the end of the video and walked with me on this journey, I thank you. You're an irreplaceable fan that I'd like to be a part of the main Majin Bird family, and I implore you to join the Dragon Ball HQ Discord server in the description. Here I'd like to garner a core fan base of Dragon Ball fans where we can celebrate and discuss the miracle that is Dragon Ball. Thank you.